Hey guys, if you could go back in time and have the required funds, what do you wish your first car was based on what was available in period? Merry Christmas to all. F40.
I mean,
You don't want that to be your first car.
I don't know. I mean, he says
You don't.
it sounds like unlimited money in period. The car was available.
You don't want that to be your first car. How are you going to show up to your high school in an F40?
like the biggest baller there possibly could be.
No.
I'll tell you what. Boom,
That's how much show up.
It's flames.
No. You don't actually want an F40. What would you actually want?
F50, good point. Yeah, very practical.
Enzo, you drive?
F60.
I don't. The F50 is pretty easy.
What would you actually want?
I don't know.
What was your first car?
I had a 1996 Volvo 850 Turbo, which in the United States is 222 horsepower. In the United States, turbos were only sold. It was a top line model in 96, except for the R.
So it wasn't the top of the line.
Well, the Turbo and the R in the Volvo 850 community. All right, let's just do this. Nobody's gonna watch this episode. Now we're getting geek out on Volvos, but the Turbo and the R in the 850 community, the R is vaunted as like the special one. In the US, they were all sold with 4-speed automatics. The R didn't have anything special. It had 18 more horsepower than the Turbo, which is not anything.
20%, 10%.
It had
probably.
fog lights, Alcantara seat inserts, and different wheels. That was it.
That's 10% more power. It's 10% more power.
That was it. Anyway, the point is,
when you were 16, what like in the realm of reason, like if you had instead of 850 Turbo money, you had like 2 or 3 times that. What would you actually have wanted to?
I really wanted a Volkswagen Corrado. That was like my first. 2 or 3 times. What I really wanted, and I begged my parents for, was a Bug-Eye WRX, which had just come out.
Really cool.
And I don't know why I thought that was even on the table. It was a $23,000. Like the concept of us getting a car like that. They never spent that much money on a car for themselves.
Right.
But I really wanted it. Yeah. It didn't happen. And I still never gotten one.
I think,
you actually had a 525i?
I had an, it'll surprise people to know. Yeah, I had an E39. I had a 2001 E39 525i.
Facelift.
It was manual with the Sport Premium package. It was topaz blue with a gray interior.
Ooh.
I loved that car.
What happened to that car?
I ended up selling it when I got the M5, just because I didn't have room for it in the garage. It was very sad. I saw a guy who I thought was going to take great care of it and absolutely did not. When he called me 2 years ago and was like, hey, I've still got the car. It's not in great shape anymore, but if you wanted to buy it back. And I was like, what do you mean? Head gasket was blown. The rust had really started. He didn't have any rusts, didn't do any preventative. And it was like the car really sunk into the ground, which made me so sad. And I saw it on Facebook Marketplace for like $1,800.
Well, he drove the car.
Yeah, but I drove it and took care of it. That's the difference. Like I do with all of my cars.
And then that one time your dad dropped a ladder on it.
So the answer
that did happen.
The answer for you was the E39 5.
No, I ended up with one anyway. But no, so I looked at a couple of very interesting cars in period that I could have had that were great. Yeah. One was a 1989 Porsche 911 Carrera, the beautiful guards red,
they
black
were cheap
interior.
Then.
Yeah.
It had 100,000 miles on it, and it was 12.5, I think.
What year was this?
This would have been 2012, 11, 12, I think. I think that's right, 11 or 12. That was one. I also looked at a first gen NSX. That was around that. It was about 15 grand.
Why did you choose the E39?
My parents were like, I showed them one thing. They're like, absolutely not. You're not driving a sports car to high school.
Yeah.
And so that didn't happen. And then I ended up getting the 525i as the first car.
But what would you, answer the question, but what would you have wished?
Well, I mean, if I could have wished anything at that time, I don't know. I really wanted an E46 M3 at that time. Yeah. That was like what I thought I thought an E46 M3 convertible with the hard top for like winter use would have been pretty cool.
It's hard to explain how cool that and the S2000 were at that time. Like now they're cool, but like then I remember idolizing those cars. And there was a kid that I knew at college who had an E46 M3 when it was, and this was 2007-8. I mean, the car was 2 years old. And he was the coolest dude.
Yeah, that's cool.
Period. Yeah. It's just straight up the coolest dude there was.
Totally.
What was your first car? I don't know the answer.
The first car I owned was the Kia Spectre. About
$4. But what was the first car you drove when you were in Madison, Wisconsin as a high schooler?
A 2003 Honda Pilot.
Okay, you drove your parents' Honda Pilot. You had to be like, Mom, can I have the keys?
For a bunch of reasons, but I actually had a lot of use of the car. My mom was working in New Hampshire when we lived in Wisconsin.
That's a long drive, so I'm surprised.
So she had a car there, but then it was just my stepdad and I. And we actually both walked most places.
Well, yeah,
So the
because
car available.
she's using the car drive between Wisconsin and New Hampshire. What? It's an insane thing. He's insane.
Yeah. I think it was just
You
commuting.
had to drive the car to Subway, or did you walk to Subway where you were?
I sometimes walked, but I did drive the car.
Filippo was
sometimes,
a Subway sandwich artist.
and then I was a senior sandwich artist.
Senior sandwich artist.
And then a shift manager, but that's the
Shift manager.
I was a 17-year-old
Shift
working
manager.
every Friday night, every Saturday from 7 to 3, and every Sunday from 8 to 3.
Okay, it's incredible that you still know your schedule.
It was every
Subway
week
in
for
high school.
every week for 2 years.
All right. You liked cars then. You probably didn't have any outlet for it,
Yeah.
you know? You're like a
I think
gay kid
I was
growing
just
up
thinking
in a
about this.
small town. You know, there's nothing. Just hoping to
Dreams.
someday
Hopes.
get out. So what did you do? What cars were you interested
I
in?
think that I would have most loved to have either like a Saab 9.3 Sport Combi or Saab 9.5 Sport Combi, or like a V70R. I don't know that I would have put those words to it, but like when I was browsing Craigslist, it was a lot of Saabs and Volvos.
Okay.
So you were
What words would you have put?
I'm a too practical person. I'm not going to buy
He was
something.
browsing Craigslist in high school looking for Saabs and Volvos, and his first car was years later in college. He bought a Kia. Even then, he was Filippo. He had all that big Subway money, and he still wasn't spending it.
so
He
close.
had aspirations of something cool, and what he did was he bought a Kia for
He
And
bought a
then
Kia years later.
In the middle of college, I spent a summer in Madison after my family had moved, working for the Department of Ed. And I came really close to buying a Saab 900 and then driving it home. I became so close.
Didn't you?
That the guy ended up accepting that. Like I went and test drove it. He wanted $900, and then something came up. I don't remember what it was.
You wouldn't spend $900.
No. I was ready to. Just something came. I don't remember
I
what
was
it was.
ready to.
You're gonna die and regret the things you never did. Which are considerable.
Sweeping.
Not only am I worried about that, I'm 100% confident that that's exactly what will happen.
All right.
Yeah.